everyone. Today I'm going to be discussing about a very important topic for your SBR. Many students approach me and they ask me, "Ma'am, how to write ethics questions in the exam?" Because you know that question number 2 of your exam is relating to ethics. So essentially, generally, a 10 marks for technical understanding or describing the ethics question is allotted, and 2 marks is allotted for the professional marks relating to the ethics question. We'll discuss about the professional marks as well. But then first, let's understand about how you should be drafting your ethics question. What are the important pointers that you should remember while you're discussing an ethics question in the exam? So I'll share the screen to make you understand the same. Typically, your ethics related issues or concerns in the exam would like you to focus and answer your question in 3 steps. Yes, just in 3 steps, you would be able to solve your ethics questions. Number one, understand and apply the principles of code of ethics and look into the scenario as to which principles of code of ethics are being breached here and which are the issues which are discussed or the dilemma relating to it is asked in the question. Because, guys, in your ethics question, you would always be having the scenarios where you'll have dilemmas and wherein multiple principles relating to the code of ethics would be breached and then compromised, and you have to understand them, you have to find out them, you have to evaluate them, and then let the examiner know about the principles which are not followed in the way that they're required to follow as per the code of ethics. The 5 pillars that we call them, or the 5 principles of the code of ethics, are integrity, objectivity, professional competence and due care, confidentiality, and professional behavior. Just to give you a deeper understanding into these 5 principles, because they are the core base for any answers that you write, I have also prepared a summary for you. Integrity essentially discusses about being honest, okay, being straightforward in all the business and the professional relationships that the ACC accountant is entering into. But please remember, even when you're writing your answers, your integrity is just not related to in being honest only. It goes a way forward. That means it also relates to having fair deals and being truthful. So when you find that a finance director given in your question is not being truthful, is intending to hide informations, you know straightforwardly that this principle is being breached here. Going forward, the next principle is objectivity. So, when I say objectivity, it would mean that one should not allow biasness, one should not have conflict of interest, any undue influence to override professional or the business judgments. That means entirely the situation sometimes gives you when an accountant is being asked by the director to follow a certain way of doing a transaction only, even though that doesn't seem that right. That means the accountant is being influenced by the director to do the same. So now straightforwardly you know that there is a breach of principle of objectivity. Additionally, I would say having the principle of objectivity also means to be independent, to not being compromised. Okay, so these pointers please keep in mind. Moving forward, I take the next one, that is professional behavior. Professional behavior simply means to comply with the laws and regulations that are being given by ACCA. That as an ACCA professional, you are expected to, exhibit, should not do any actions, be it bribery for example, okay, be it doing any kind of adjustments, any kind of window dressing, that's just going to bring discredit to the profession, is something that is not expected by ACCA, which clearly indicates there is a lack of professional behavior. Also, ACCA further indicates that the member is required to behave with courtesy and having consideration towards everyone that they come in contact in their professional capacity. That means they are not just going to exhibit in their in their professional work that they are doing, but also by the way that they're behaving with the other professionals, that also exhibit professional behavior. So for example, I would say having a good professional behavior is also to ensure that you reply to all your business emails in the way that you're expected to revert, and the way that you conduct yourself also exhibits professional behavior. Many times I find students to be confused with professional behavior and intake and competence in due care. Please remember, competence in due care is all about being having the continuous professional development. That means having the competencies to be, we can say, up to date with the accounting standards, with the transactions, with the updates, with the laws and regulations, to ensure that the professional is not outdated, is being up to date. So competence is all about having that technical stronghold. For example, we all know that now a new IS is being there in your SBR syllabus as well, September 25 onwards, that is IFRS 18. So now, as a professional, as an ACC accountant, the professional is expected to know about these changes if they are going to apply them for their financial, if he's a part of that financial reporting applications. So this is where professional competencies play a very important role. So, like even I've mentioned these points here, that the professional is expected to be in line with the current development in practice, in legislations, and in techniques. He should be acting diligently and in accordance with the technical and the professional standards that he is expected to know in the discharge of his professional duties. So I hope now the difference between behavior and competencies is absolutely clear with everyone. Moving on, when we discuss confidentiality, it simply says whatever information and a professional is gathering while being in his professional journey is not expected to be disclosed to a third party. Okay, and it's expected to be completely confidential. He can use his approaches, while he's discharging his duties towards multiple clients, but the disclosure of information that is specific to one client should not be disclosed to any other clients unless he has the authority to do so. So we should write in our answer also with regards to these points that the ACC professional is not expected to disclose any information to third parties without specific authority, unless there is a professional or a legal duty to disclose the same. So therefore, confidential information which is acquired as a result of these professional relationships should not be used for their personal advantage by the members and the third parties. So remember, personal advantage also becomes a very key factor to know whether there is a confidentiality breach or not. I hope now everyone is absolutely clear about these five principles, which are breached. Any of these are breached that you have to identify in a question. Next step is to identify the related threats. Due to the breach of these principles, what are the related threats that are being there now? That is like there is a self interest threat. So, if I say there is a confidentiality breach, it automatically leads to self interest threat, right? Self review threat. That means you're using the work of yourself that you have done in past or others without confirming, without checking whether or without making changes to it that should be made in accordance to the current situations, right? So that's a biggest, very big threat. Then we have likewise the advocacy threat, familiarity threat, and intimidation threat. Intimidation is also a very serious threat because it affects the persons personally also, because it affects their capacity in which they are operating or in which they are functioning. So it basically takes away their independence of work. So it is completely linked with objectivity as well. So step one, please highlight the principle which is being breached and the related threats. Step two, relate it with the question. You will first discuss about this background information like I've also given you in those notes. So when you discuss those background information related with the case study given to you, identify at which places the principles are breached and how do you know that, highlight them, and it is relating to which threats, if that is required to be answered. And then finally you will draw down the action points, that is the conclusion you would recommend to the management, to the sorry, not the management but to the professional. What is the corrective course of action that he should take or the firm should take? Okay, so this completes your answer. Always remember your ethics question would be completed in these three steps only. In your exam, you'll always have ethical dilemmas. Please do not uh, get panicked by looking at those dilemmas. Just identify the principles breached, highlight them related with the question, and give away your conclusions. Please remember your examiner is always looking for a constructed response, okay, a structured response, a response that shows that yes, these are professional answers, okay, these are not any name answers, meaning to say that your examiner is looking for answers in a way that basically shows it's not a brain dump. Okay, it's not a brain dump, it is thoughtfully created answers. And the best way to write is like I've given you the pointers here. I've used headings. Please use heading. Please use headings. Please be very simple in your writing. Be very legitimate. Be very understandable. Be very clear and respond to the information which is given to you. So always relate your this information that we already know about the principles and related with the question, the scenario. How do you know that the particular principle is breached? And then finally giving the action points. Suggest and remember those action points should also always be given in a way that you are suggesting. You are not directly given that this is to be done. This can be done. This may be done. Okay, and then review your answer once before you submit. I think we can quickly look at a question and discuss some pointers that would give you more confidence when you're writing your answers. Okay, I'll quickly take you to the pre-June mock paper and let's discuss some pointers here. I'm on question number 2 of your ACCA pre-June mock 2025. I quickly take you to the second part of the question only that talks about ethics. So let's go to the requirement of the question that says using exhibit 1 and 2 discuss the ethical issues arising from Bimal's instructions to Shami and explain how Shami should proceed. Question number 1 says that this is typically a sale and a leaseback arrangement, how it should be accounted for. We are not discussing question number 1, we are discussing question number 2. If you observe, this is for 10 marks and this is for 2 marks. So you will gain easily your professional marks when you're writing your answers in the structured response and giving away these points clearly with the paragraph, headings, so on. Now I'll quickly take you to the second point because I'm not discussing the technical portion. Bimal, the finance director of Gillim, is ACCA qualified. He has just returned to work after an extended period of leave. He has sent the following email to Shami, the finance manager. Shami, in respect of the sales and leaseback arrangement, I think we should assume that the emission targets in 20x7 was unusual, and since West Side was constructed in accordance with sustainable building guidelines, the target is highly likely to be met in all other years. I've already read the first part, so I know it is more about this question is more about the sustainable buildings. So that basically says that here the focus is to lower the emissions. And this question or this email basically tells us that they are assuming that although they have missed the emission targets in 20x7 and which was unusual, they are expecting that it's more highly likely that they will achieve the emission targets in the coming years. I believe that the meeting this highly likely threshold means that you should recognize the lease liability based on future lease payments of 1.25 million per year rather than 1.4 million. This will keep Gilliam's finance cost to the minimum possible and help to ensure that the debt service covenants put in place by the bank are met. Also, when you draft, so when I'm discussing this question, I want this highly likely to be highlighted, okay? And then I would highlight this line because this is a very important line that they have put up. Also, when you draft Gilliam's sustainability disclosures, there won't be much to write about at all. I think that most of the content should focus on the fact that Gilliam applies sustainable building practices and as a result can access cheaper finance. Thanks, Bimal. Shami is also an ACCA qualified accountant and keeps up to date with the reporting regulations and requirements. She's concerned about the instructions given by Bimal but is unsure what to do. So, the first point is if you observe here, the question is discussing about the emission targets. Okay, it is discussing about the emission targets. So how you should be giving away your response, you should be giving away the response that uh, in the email from to Shami from Bimil highlighted about the emission targets that was set up by the entity, or no, it's a sale and lease back, so that was set up by the lessor to be achieved. However, in 2017 or 20x7, the targets were not achieved. Bimal is expecting to achieve the targets, and the chances of it is highly likely for the upcoming years. However, when we read this question further, we find that the intention of Bimal of putting up this point is so that the Gilliam's finance cost remain to the minimum possible in order to meet the covenants which are put in place by the bank. So the intention of Bimal is to meet these covenants. That means there is some element of dishonesty, there is some element of conflict of interest which is arising. Hence, we can say that there is a breach of principle of integrity, there is a principle of objectivity, as well as the professional behavior. Being an ACCA, he is not expected to discharge his duties in such a way. This becomes my introductory paragraph. Next, we can suggest that now on the next point. So we have discussed about the highly likely point. Now the next point says that no, sorry, we have discussed the above point, and now let's discuss the highly likely point. As per the case study, Bimal believes that meeting the highly likely threshold would ensure that there is a recognition of lease liability for the future payments of 1.25 million. However, we can say that when we are creating a provision, highly likely is something that we are not looking for, because if there is a provision, okay, uh, if we are expecting that these emission targets are even not going to be achieved in the upcoming years, then a provision for the liability would still be recognized. So this shows that Bimal is not technically updated with the technical standards. Hence, this clearly shows his lack of competencies. And because Shami is having these questions, and even though he's an ACCA professional, she's an ACCA professional herself, and she's up to date with the reporting regulations. It indicates that Bimal needs this up to date updation. So he's lacking on the front of professional competencies and due care as well. Okay, next, when we discuss about the sustainable building guidelines, it basically says that if we read this line, it says there is um, yeah, and can access a cheaper finance. So the purpose of Gilliam is also being defeated here. Now we can go further and discuss more pointers that are there in Exhibit 1 as well. So basically, this talks about more on sustainability standards. So if, because sustainability term we can see here. So as this clearly indicates that Bimal is not well versed with the sustainability standards as well, okay, which are being applied here. So if he's not, and which is typically S1 because S2 is on climate. So the general requirements of sustainability reporting, he's not well versed with the risk and opportunities, with the reporting requirements and the other details. So this shows there is a lack of lack of up to date knowledge, technical knowledge with BIML, and there are ethical issues that are being there in this case. So, like this, you will add on the points and write everything like this, whatever I've discussed in the paragraphs. Okay, easy discussion. Once you have achieved all this, and then we have to give the conclusion. We can say that if BIML is not ready to accept the mistakes, or the concerns that Shami has raised, then Shami should approach the management or the committees, as the case may be, and inform them about the wrongdoings or the not fair practices which are adopted by BIML. Okay, and or otherwise, one more pointer that we write always, that they can connect with the ACCA also to understand the next course of action to be taken. Done. And you get your 12 marks. So, what you are doing, we were all the time discussing about these five principles and relating it to the question only. So, that is why I say these five principles are the pillars for achieving these 20 marks, out of which 12 is like very, very easily gettable marks. I hope that this video helps and resolves all your concerns as regards the ethical issues and solving ethical dilemmas in the exam. Thank you so much.